weightlifting coach that I started with, he spent 8, 9, almost 10 years in seminary. So his plan was to be a priest. But he also went to a very athletic Catholic school. So it was an all boys boarding school to lead to seminary. But he was very, very, very good at football. And so we had a lot of similarities in the sense of football leading. Yeah, this was Lou. And then so thinking of, this guy that is a, really, really respected weightlifting coach and strength focused guy, his upbringing and background was to be a priest. Then he turned that into a master's in Latin and English, focusing more on poetry than anything. So I think my exposure to maybe some of the more intellectual or delicate sides of people still in that, strength sport focus, I'm sure that was a big influence for me too, because I had, hours and hours and hours of alone time with him and just conversation. And he was definitely a very, very, very big father figure for me, I guess. And that kind of emotional intelligence, or him always kind of wanting me to think more and take more ownership of my actions and my training and all of those things, put a different spin on even weightlifting and strength sports for me. I had a lot more respect for the athletes that were very thoughtful, that had a lot of composure and control over their emotions, versus the maybe more stereotypical, like just like strong guy, just, go for it and bang your head in the wall and whatever. In my instance, it allowed me to take sport and connect that to kind of every other area of life. And when you find yourself stuck in a certain area, you can start looking at parallels. So like what parallels and what principles work in one domain, in theory, they should work in all of the domains. So, in weightlifting and in training, just working harder and doing more does not necessarily make you better. It usually turns into overtraining, injury, lack of progress. And then you can look at that in the same sense with life and school and work, is just putting your head down and pushing it generally doesn't help. You have to be a little bit more aware of things. We were talking before we started about, having that German way of like, make a process and have a plan, and then stick to it and be more proactive than reactive. I would say that would be another big thing that I definitely learned from trying to look at even whatever season of life or whatever thing that I'm focused on now. I know that's a building block for whatever I'm going into next. And not necessarily knowing what that will be, but that I need to just be aware and not just have, your eyes closed and too single-minded, to what you're doing. We had a children's show when we were little in the US called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, yeah. So I watched it when I was little, and it's very impressionable when you grow up. And they recently had a documentary about his life, and then they did a film where Tom Hanks was the actor that played Mr. Rogers. And it was cool because they kind of, when they asked him like, what's his purpose in life, or what does he want to be, what does he want to do, and he was a very, very let's say strong man of faith. Like, he was very, very much Christian centered, but he never really led on to that to too many people. He just tried to portray a lot of what he believed to be the best principles of what he believed in. And he simplified everything to saying that he just wanted to be a good man. And then from that, he was able to kind of base all of his decisions, all of his actions, all of his work choices. And I've actually been thinking a little bit on that, in the sense of, to me, like for my motto, like when I go to bed, can I think about the day, and can I say that I was, I did something good? Did I have a good effect? When I wake up in the morning, what do I want to do today that is good? So I actually shared one of the little posts I shared on Instagram today was just that visual of what does it mean to be a light, like the light of the world, to shine some light. And when you think of the idea of a completely dark room, So that like that room is void of everything. The darkness is very, very present, very, very full. And all it takes is one little match or one little light to open up and allow you to see and have some perspective. So I think it's a really long answer to a motto, but you
Oh,
know, being a light, but ultimately being a good light. And I think you can be pretty objective in putting that into any situation. If you think of now, you know, we're dealing with a world pandemic and people are very frustrated or insecure with what's going on. So, you know, even in a simple situation like going out in public, is what I'm doing potentially helping other people or hurting other people? And that can be a good kind of a good gauge for a motto of how to just act in situations. And I catch myself. There's plenty of situations where I have to be honest with myself and say that wasn't, you know, that wasn't a moment of being light or being good. Like you can correct that, you can improve that. And I think that's a, for me, that's a very, very good gauge to always have in my mind as a little bit of a motto. Is I want to be, ultimately I always want to be good. That's not necessarily possible, but yeah, I want to be, I want to be light, I want to be good. I want to offer more than I take away from circumstances, situations, relationships, and life. The very first like I would say group coaching experience I had was when I was still competing. I had a friend that was a very, very good CrossFitter, and he would train with us at our weightlifting gym. And so as weightlifters, it's the same as gymnasts and a lot of Olympic sports and really any sport. Um, if you're a thoughtful athlete, you're always doing some type of coaching. So whether it's with your peers, whether it's just with dialogue back and forth with your coaches, you're always coaching. So I feel like I was fortunate with that, to have that perspective. And then from training with this friend that was the good CrossFitter, we always had really good like technical discussions and, you know, oh, what were you thinking about on that lift? Or why did you do that? Or he would ask me the same thing. And he was explaining that to some of his friends at a CrossFit gym that he had been competing at, and they were, I don't know, intrigued. They wanted to know more about weightlifting and understand it, so they asked me to come out and teach a small group class with all of their competitors. And I thought, yeah, okay, no problem, that can't be so difficult. The small group class, the small group class was at 6 in the morning, and it was nearly a 2-hour drive from my house.
wow.
So so that was like intimidation number one. Oh great, so now I have 2 hours to think about this group class that I'm going to teach that I've never taught before. And then the small group class was about, oh man, I think it was like 15 to 18 people. And to me, that was very intimidating in the sense that I'd never even trained with more than 3 or 4 people, like in one moment. So I thought, okay, now I have to, like, in this instance, come up with a plan for all these people that want to learn weightlifting, and I have 1 hour. So that was like very much like just getting thrown into the water to swim. And I think it went pretty well, but it was definitely a little bit chaotic in the sense of I was trying to demonstrate a lot of things and then have them practice, and then I put them all into smaller subgroups, and okay, everybody's going to do this way I can go around and check it out. But that was very much what my coaching and class settings looked like for about 3 or 4 years. I mean, I refined them quite a bit, and I immediately put a cap on class sizes when I had the opportunity. So I started to teach upwards of like 16 to 20 classes a week at multiple CrossFit gyms, and I would always try to keep them at, my dream number was 6 people. If I could have 6 people in a class, I felt great. The problem was most gyms said, yeah, that's not really going to work because they can't even pay you to come out to coach 6 people, or those 6 people are not going to be able to afford a rate for us to do this. So that was like a business lesson for me. I learned that, okay, this is actually something that's supposed to be profitable for you know, the gyms and the instructor and everything. So I got pretty comfortable with like 8 to 10 people in a class and coaching that. And then I guess the next transition would have been syncing up with the Power Monkeys and starting to do some clinics and workshops that turned into, you know, bigger group settings. So more like 20 to 30 people. And that was again another learning experience for me. And that also turned into, okay, 20 or 30 people, but in a country with a translator and a lot of, half language skills and different things, and having to learn how to be even more deliberate with the words that I was using, or you can tell already, well, because you're my friend and anybody that's listening, I can be very long-winded. So having to be quicker with my comments and my feedback. Yeah, it's been kind of the full circle of one-on-one sessions, two-on-one sessions, three-on-one sessions, classes of 8 to 12, 2-day seminars, week-long camps and clinics. In terms of age groups, I mean, I had a girl that I still coach now that she's specifically trained for weightlifting, and she's 17. She came to the first weightlifting class for her when I think she was just turning 10. And she started taking weightlifting classes with me and her parents when she was 10, and just kind of never stopped. I also had a women's weightlifting class that the youngest woman in the class was usually about 50 to 52, and the oldest woman in the class was right around 70 to 72. And that was a Wednesday morning class that I guess there were a few women that were younger that would pop in, but the average age was definitely, mid to late 50s into the 60s. And they were they were phenomenal. um, and then I don't know, kind of other unique class settings I did with one of our other coaches at Power Monkey, Kevin Montoya. We traveled to Saudi Arabia and did a 3-day gymnastics and weightlifting coaches course for only female trainers in Saudi Arabia. So that was a unique experience. I followed that up with going to Israel and doing a week-long youth camp. So the age range went from like 8 to 17, and I had those guys from like 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon all day long. So yeah, kind of any format that you can imagine for teaching and instruction. I think it's happened. Last year, I was asked to do a small talk, demo, and class for something like 50 football players. And that in itself was another, like, I felt like I was going right back to the first class I had ever taught. Like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this group. And in those moments, I resort to my natural instincts. So I actually do not plan. I just go in with a very blank slate, and kind of trust everything that I've practiced and learned, and go with it there. But yeah, it's every type of class and setting you can imagine has happened.
That's awesome.